TNX Radio, where we interview people attempting to live extraordinary lives. Our twofold purpose is to both direct and inspire people bold enough to do the same. Dream 10X. Face your fears and make your life count. Hey, Dream 10X. Welcome to episode 22. It's your boy JC and my beautiful co-host
Dr. C.
How you doing this evening?
22.
Episode 22.
Wow.
We have committed to 52 episodes, you know that?
Yeah, I do.
We're only at 22.
I think it's a lot.
So we still have 30 more to go.
We do.
So here we go. This time we are talking about a book by Tom Perkins called Valley Boy, The Education of Tom Perkins.
Who's Tom Perkins?
Well, that's an interesting question. So I'm looking at Instagram one night and I see this beautiful sailing vessel. And it's the most fascinating thing I've ever seen. And I look at the name of it. It's called the Maltese Falcon.
Ooh, good name.
And I'm curious who could own such a yacht, because it's gigantic and it's beautiful and it's high tech. It's obviously high tech. And so I looked up I Googled who the owner of the Maltese Falcon was. And it's this guy, Tom Perkins. And so I wanted to find out more about Tom Perkins and who he was and everything. So I bought his book, and come to find out he was a very well-known Silicon Valley venture capitalist. And that's where he got all his money from, basically, to build this beautiful boat.
Wow. And
so you and I are into sailing and,
yes,
and being on the water and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to talk a little bit about this magnificent machine that he built. The Maltese Falcon was just one of his yachts. He had many, many yachts because he was a billionaire. He was worth about $8 billion when he died.
What do you do with multiple yachts?
You sail them a lot with lots of different women.
Wait a minute.
No, he sailed around the world a lot. He loved being on the water. His favorite island, I read in the book, was St. Bart's. Have you ever been to St. Bart's?
I haven't. Have you?
No, I haven't. And I would love to go now.
Yeah.
Because it was one of his favorite spots.
Is it the U.S. Virgin Islands?
It's not. I think it's French.
French? Okay.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken. In fact, he wrote the end of his book while he was sitting on his yacht at St. Bart's. Can you imagine? Some people. Oh, I'd love to be like him. But so yeah, multiple yachts. Oh, there's some really cool stuff about him that kind of intersects with some of our interests and things. So this is a very technologically advanced yacht. It employed a technology for the sail rig called the Dyna rig. And so
say that again?
It's called the Dyna rig.
Dyna.
Okay. Kind of a dynamic rig.
Oh, okay.
And it was invented before him, but he employed it in his yacht. And basically, it allows one person to unfurl the sails for the entire vessel. It's all automated.
I've seen those.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And so this is a big sailing boat, 289 footer. 289 footer.
Oh, so awesome.
The spars, the masts on this thing are 58 meters. 58 meters, 18 stories tall, and they're all made of carbon fiber.
Oh.
This is just a beautiful, beautiful, huge boat. And the only reason it could come into being is because of the amount of testing that went into the individual components. This is another aspect I think is really fascinating. So it was state of the art at the time. A lot of advanced technology. The most carbon fiber of any vessel used anywhere, except maybe outside of the U.S. Air Force and their stealth bombers and stuff. Which, ironically, all of this carbon fiber, it was built in Turkey. So all this carbon fiber is being shipped to Turkey. And that raised a bunch of alarm bells with, the government saying, hey, are you building missiles? Are you having missiles built in Islamic Turkey? Kind of
wow. No, it's just a really big mast.
Or are you just happy to see me? So very technologically advanced vessel. The only way they could pull it off was by testing the individual components using computer simulations and computer-assisted design. And so there was a lot of individual component testing. And they really didn't know how the whole thing was going to come together and work until the whole boat was actually out on the water.
Wow.
And after 3 hours of testing, they realized, hey, it's all going to be good. I don't know how you knew after only 3 hours of testing, but he felt really confident after 3 hours on the water testing that everything was going to work the way it was supposed to work. 3 hours! 289
Incredible.
feet. It's an engineering marvel.
What would Jim Brown say about that?
I don't know. We should ask him.
We should.
You know anything about the Maltese? Hey, Jim, if you're listening, let us know your thoughts on the Maltese Falcon. It's not a multi-hull, but it was designed and built by an Italian company in Turkey. So anyway, that's kind of the backstory on this beautiful boat that caught my attention and led me to who Tom Perkins was.
Very cool.
So, Mr. Perkins, Valley Boy.
Okay, fine, for sure.
Yeah, like totally. I keep thinking of that every time.
Yeah.
Totally. So yeah, grew up in New York. He was born in 1932. And he died in 2016 at the age of 84. Net worth was around $8 billion. Wow. He studied electrical engineering and computer science at MIT. Graduated from Harvard University MBA program. And at Harvard, he studied under Professor Georges Doriot, who was a Frenchman who came to the United States and became I think he was known as the general, but I'm not sure of what his actual rank was in the Army. But he was in World War II. He was a quartermaster, and became a very popular, famous professor at Harvard. And this guy, Doriot, also founded, the HEC Executive MBA. At Paris.
Oh, really?
It's a very popular MBA program.
Wow.
Global MBA.
Okay.
He also founded INSEAD, INSEAD, which is another top graduate business school in France, but it also has campuses around the world, including San Francisco. And this guy started the first venture capital firm. That was a full-time venture capital firm. So Georges... How do you say Georges?
Georges.
Georges. Georges Doriot was really the first venture capitalist in America. And so Tom Perkins studied under him at Harvard. And so that's how Tom Perkins got his ideas and his thoughts and his start through venture capital.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah. Thought that was a good angle to learn about there. The other cool thing about Doriot was that his company funded DEC, the company, DEC.
I don't know that.
Digital Equipment Corporation. And when I was in my younger years, I really lusted after the DEC Alpha 64-bit RISC processor machine. I really wanted those things because they were like state-of-the-art fast at the time. So I thought that was interesting. Oh yeah, DEC Alpha. Forgot about that. Okay, so while Perkins was at Harvard doing his MBA, he worked for a company called General Radio Company, and they made certain types of electronic measuring equipment, and he was tasked with kind of surveying the field for other companies that did similar things, and he came upon HP, Hewlett-Packard. And Hewlett-Packard, while their equipment was not as pretty, not as nicely packaged as General Radio's, General Radio was a Boston-based company, by the way. So he's up in Boston doing his thing.
Good place to sail.
Yeah, good place to sail, good place to row. So while he's doing his survey, he discovers HP and discovers that he really likes the company. So after he decides he wants to work for them after he graduates. So he sends them a letter, and they say, "Yeah, come on out to New York. We're doing a trade show, IEEE trade show. well, we'd like to meet you. So he hops on the train, goes to New York, and goes to the IEEE trade show, and he discovers Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard setting up the stand for the trade show. And he's impressed by that because he's like, none of the bigwigs at GR would ever set up their own stand at a trade show. But here the two founders of HP are setting up the stand. And so he offers to help them set up while talking to him. And they interview him right then on the spot while he's helping them put up the thing, right? And by the end of their discussion, they're like, yeah, we'd really like to hire you. And so he decides to come out and work for them. And so Dave Packard, one of the founders of Hewlett-Packard, becomes his mentor. And it becomes a kind of a lifelong relationship between the two through that. Or he got in on the ground floor. He was actually one of the first MBAs that they had ever hired at HP.
Dang, that's amazing.
Which kind of worked against him because they didn't know really what to think about MBAs at the time, especially Ivy League ones. But
being able to like interact with somebody at that level while they're in the middle of setting things up and being on the ground floor themselves and getting that experience and being able to converse in that very like low key manner, I think is really fascinating and really shows a lot about the CEOs and their mentality. And wow, what an amazing company! Yeah.
It really was an amazing company. It was. I don't know about now.
Back in the day.
It was a really cool company. Yeah, HP is it's like core to Silicon Valley in what it is today. So he worked there for a while, and then he got restless and decided to leave and went to go work for Booz Allen.
Oh, no.
Did I read that right? He went to go work for Booz Allen. Apparently he made a lot more money there. But didn't last long at Booz either. And then he went to go work for a startup company called OTI, and they were doing some laser R&D there. They were trying to, and so Tom Perkins was really into lasers, which is another thing that intrigued me about him because as a kid I loved lasers. Light amplification by the stimulated emission of radiation. As a kid,
say it again 3 times fast.
As a kid, I loved lasers.
Yeah.
And I remember as a 10-year-old trying to make a laser with a telescope that I had and a slide projector. And I thought, well, if I put the slide projector on the telescope, I could somehow amplify this beam and stuff. But it never worked, and I was very frustrated. But anyway, always loved lasers, so I really I like that about him. OTI, he fell out with the other founder of the company, and so he left. And then he came back to HP after that. So this is like his third company, comes back to HP again. And while he's at HP, he's still got this itch to make this laser that is as common or as cheap as a light bulb that you can turn on and off and not, I guess they were big and bulky at the time, and he was trying to make them smaller and more compact and more easy to use. And so he's working at HP and decides that he has this idea for this laser that could be a big hit, but he's not sure how to do it because he doesn't have any money and he's newlywed. And his wife is pregnant. And so he's trying to figure it out. So he goes to his mentor, Dave Packard, who's the owner of HP, one of the owners, and says, hey, I got this idea for this laser, and I'm wondering if I could work on it in my spare time, if you'd mind. And Dave was very entrepreneurial and fully supported him and said, yeah, just go for it, man. Just don't spend too much of HP's time doing it. And so he did, and then the next step was to get his wife's permission to take their $15,000 savings and try to get some prototypes built and try to sell it. So he did that. His wife agreed, said, yeah, let's go for it. And so they're in California at the time, in the Berkeley area, and had some sailing connections with this guy who had a boat that was near theirs, moored near the boat that they had. So he's been sailing ever since then, way back when. This guy was making glass for something as a hobby or something like. He was a glass blower as a hobby, and Tom Perkins needed glass tubes for his lasers, so he asked him if he would help blow some glass tubes for his early prototype lasers to help them get started, and in exchange would give him a third of the company.
Wow, nice.
And then he had another friend at his old company at OTI, Dick, who he offered to give another third of the company for managing it. And he kept a third of the company for just having the idea and putting his own money in it and stuff like that. So there's 3 investors in this company. It's called Universal Labs. Is that right? University Labs. And they, after a while, they succeeded in building. They had some, it was complicated, and they had a lot of pitfalls, and almost went broke, just like most companies do. But ultimately succeeded in manufacturing a laser that they could sell to like construction companies for keeping sewage pipes straight and things like that. And so all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, but over time, they started getting more and more orders. And then they had the problem of, I'm so successful, I need money to deal with my success, to expand. And I think that was a really key takeaway of mine from this book, is that, we're always talking like, never take venture capital because then you lose your company to the investors. But they couldn't grow unless they got money. He would never have been the success that he was if he did not get venture capital to grow. Because you couldn't have one guy blowing all those glass tubes for all the orders that they were getting, right? Yeah. So they needed the money to invest in a production line to automate the creation of these glass tubes and all the other stuff that went into manufacturing a laser. So they eventually got the venture capital and were able to fulfill their orders, and basically became a success. And then they had another problem, that they became even more successful, that he was at a crossroads. Did he leave HP and run this company full time, or what was he going to do? Because he couldn't do both then. And he didn't want to leave HP again.
I see that. A little awkward.
So he had this other friend who was a banker there, a prominent banker in San Francisco, who was investing in another company called Spectra Physics. And they were heavy on the technology side, but light on the profits. Whereas University Labs was heavy on the profits and a little bit lighter on the tech. And he thought it would be a good merger.
Oh, that was smart.
So he helped arrange the sale of University Labs to Spectra Physics and made the 3 of them very, very wealthy. And he never left HP.
And he still worked full time for HP.
But his friend Dick retired at age 25.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Retired, he was set. They were all set.
Yeah.
But Tom Perkins continued working at HP.
What did you love about HP?
And then the other guy just wanted to sail boats and stuff, so he was gone too. Well, I mean, HP is a great company. And in fact, later on in his career, after he left HP again, he came back to be on the board, and there's all kinds of drama about being on the board that I don't really, I didn't find that interesting with Carly Fiorina and all that stuff. It's all board politics. It's not intriguing to me. But
what I think is interesting, though, is that he had the opportunity to walk away and go sail at the time or do whatever he wanted to do, and yet he still stayed working at HP.
Yeah.
I can't even wrap my head around that.
Yeah. So, well, that's, I think, part of why he became such a huge success. Is he didn't just quit right then. Yeah. He kept going. And in fact, after a while, he did leave HP again, though. And he hooked up with this guy called Eugene Kleiner, who's of Austrian descent. And they formed a company and went around the country gathering people's money.
Okay.
I just think this is so funny. They could go out and get people to give you money to put in a pot of money, to build a pot of money basically, that you then take that pot of money and invest in companies to try to grow that money for your investors.
So it's kind of like crowdfunding for the modern day crowdfunding, but instead of one project.
But no crowd, really.
Yeah, well, getting money from other people into one pot.
Yeah, but not so much of a crowd. It's a small crowd. Very small.
A targeted crowd.
Targeted crowd,
okay.
yeah. So they went around, got a bunch of money, and then their intent was to fund tech companies and manage them and bring them to success, and then return an investment, give a return to their investors on that. So they now were following Georges Doriot's model of venture capital. So now this is how he became, known in Silicon Valley for being such a prominent venture capitalist.
Very cool.
However, they could not find anybody to invest in. Nobody wanted money. Nobody would take money from them.
Was it the same dilemma that we have, where it's like, well, I don't want people to run our company, or what? Why did they have such a hard time?
It just wasn't so much of a thing then.
Huh.
And in the early days of venture capitalists, it wasn't that big of a thing, and they couldn't find anybody, so they basically created their own companies.
Oh, well, that works too.
Yeah, and they were hugely successful there, and then of course the companies they did invest in, they managed as well. And then they went on to fund a number of companies. Here are some of the names. Tandem Computers. I haven't heard of them, but they were a big success. They developed fault-tolerant computers.
What does that mean?
Highly available computers that wouldn't go down very often. For like banks and stock exchanges and stuff like that.
Okay.
A gene therapy kind of drug company called Genentech. They came up with drugs for cancer patients, heart patients, stuff like that. Hugely successful, still around today. A company called Home Healthcare of America. I think I've heard of that. I'm not sure what they do. LSJ Logic. Compact Computers. Have you heard of that?
Yes, that I know.
They gave them money. Netscape. You heard of them?
Mm-hmm. I sure have.
Sun Microsystems.
Oh, your guys.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite companies in the world. Sun Microsystems. They funded. They're not around anymore, unfortunately. Amazon.
Oh.
Google.
Yeah.
Also funded those guys. So once you see this list of companies, you're like, well, okay, no wonder he's extremely wealthy, because these are very successful tech companies. And also, prolific sailor, a lot of vessels that he owned, including the Maltese. Oh, I forgot to mention the captain that he got for a lot of his vessels, including the Maltese Falcon. His name was Chris Gartner. And he was from Golden, Colorado.
No way, dude.
Went to the University of Colorado. So that's another intersection that was really interesting. We spent some time in Golden and really love it there. So it's not a sailing place. So
no, middle of Colorado. No.
Golden, Colorado, to become a skipper of the Maltese Falcon. That's a journey right there. I also thought this you might find this interesting, that his junior year at MIT, he worked in the Netherlands for a company called Philips NV in Eindhoven.
No, I don't know that.
No? Okay.
My parents might, but I don't know.
So while he was there, he developed a profound appreciation for the Dutch because of their hard work ethic and biking to work. They bike everywhere, I guess. And so... they're also really good shipbuilders, apparently.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's my dad is there.
Yeah, so he really had a good appreciation for the Dutch, and he eventually came back to the States, and then was later on in his career asked to serve on a board of a Dutch company called Philips. And he made some more connections through that board, and one of the guys that he knew from there knew of an inventor, a Dutch inventor by the name of Jan Sloot. Sloot? Yeah, Jan Sloot. What?
Okay, nothing.
Okay. And this is such a kind of ironic, funny, sad story. But this inventor had spent the last 15 years of his life building this video compression technology that allowed you to store videos on a smart card. So a very small memory device. And so the technology was way ahead of its time. And he got, through his connections, he got word of this inventor and decided to invest in the inventor's idea, so he could finally take his invention and start a company from it. And Tom Perkins said, "I'm going to put money in your idea and let's start a company." And to formalize that, he flew to his house with his friend, and they met with this inventor and his family. And to celebrate, they had chocolate cake and champagne.
Yummy.
And the way he describes the inventor's face in this book is one of just pure bliss. Like he was just so happy to have, after 15 years of working hard on this tech, finally had gotten to a point where he could start a company and could be successful with it. And so Perkins leaves, gets on an airplane to go back home. And then the next day calls up his friend to say, "Hey, let's go. I'm really excited about this technology. Let's get this company going." And his friend says, "I'm sorry to tell you, but right after you left, Jan had a massive pulmonary
embolism.
He had a heart attack. He had a massive heart attack right after you left and died."
Oh my God!
And took with him the technology behind the whole thing. Like there was nothing written down. There was no code for it. He had it somehow on. They could never find the tech, the actual compiler that the guy had, the source code for the compiler that he had written. And
That's so sad.
So it was like basically gone after he died.
His legacy.
Yeah. It's just so ironic. Like he finally pushed this boulder up to the top, and then had success, and then that's just life, Meanwhile, Perkins becomes a multi-billionaire. You just never know.
Yeah.
You never know how the dice is going to roll for you or whatever. So anyway, I thought that was a really interesting story. I don't want to be Jan. I want to be Tom.
No, yeah.
Don't be a Jan.
Let's be Tom.
So anyway, those were the highlights. He also wrote another book called Sex and the Single Zillionaire, which is kind of it's a fictional account of a really rich person who's like maybe it's his alter ego or something like that. I don't know, but I thought it might be interesting to read. But
yeah.
Apparently he had a lot of fun with that, and all the proceeds that he got from that book he donated to Harvard. So
really?
Yeah. A little tidbit there. But those are the big highlights, and so it was an interesting book.
It sounds really fun.
It's not chronological, and it kind of skips all over the place. He just had fun with it, and he died not too long after writing the book, and
yeah,
it's interesting. An interesting insight into his life and his loves and stuff like that. So I recommend it. It's a good book. Valley Boy: The Education of Tom Perkins, one of the more prominent venture capitalists in Silicon Valley. And that's it for episode 22, from entrepreneur to becoming a venture capitalist.
Sounds like a fun adventure.
Talk to you guys next week. Thanks for listening. Cheers.